Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another forecast. We're going to be talking about the snowstorm that's kind of happening right now. Believe it or not, we did have some surprise snowfall over there in parts of Iowa going into Illinois as well. You can actually see some of that on the satellite just hanging out below the cloud tops here. You can really see it on this frame. Look at that. Wasn't really modeled very well, but it's there and it did happen. As you can see in northern Illinois, we had anywhere from 1 to 3 inches that have already fallen over here near Waterloo going into northern Illinois. So definitely a little bit of an interesting scenario there. Just enough moisture made it over that cooler air in this region. And now that moisture is pushing off to the east. You can see the kind of cold front draping across the United States. That's bringing showers and thunderstorms to a lot of folks in the southeast, all the way up into the northern portion of the United States. And eventually, we're going to see a lot more rain transition from up here into snow in the northeast. Coming over to our national radar, you can see kind of two features here on the radar. You can see that larger low pressure system over here starting to scoot off to the east. Eventually, a lot of this rain up here is going to transition into more snow, and that's eventually going to push off into the northeast, bringing some snow up there. And then we also have our clipper system that is slowly getting its act together up here in Canada and in northern Montana as well. Eventually, we're going to see this track all the way down to the south and east, and it looks like some of the models are coming back with that potential for a decent amount of snow for this region of the Ohio Valley. Also all the way up into this region as well. But yesterday, some of the models were trying to drop some further south snow, but it looks like they have brought it back today. And then eventually that's going to move off to the east and kind of combined with an area of moisture off of the east coast, bringing a really close call for some major snow up there in the northeast. So let's go ahead and break all of that down on the future radar here and kind of show you what this could look like in the future. First off, what's dictating this little snow pattern that's happening right now is the fact that we have the polar jet stream pushing into the United States, kind of phasing a little bit with the subtropical jet, bringing in that moisture mainly from the Gulf of Mexico down here. And that's going to kind of push off to the east and kind of intensify and try to become a more organized storm just off of the coast of New England. You can really see that happen here on the models. You see those reds really start to pick up here. And then also watching for a little bit of this clipper system that's going to be coming on the backside of this thing. Might bring a little bit of extra rain and snow for some folks. We will be talking about that after this. But yeah, generally, the jet stream is pretty wavy right now. And I really do think that's going to continue for a while. We're going to have these little shots of cold air and some snow. Also, we're going to have the potential for some storms as well as we move into later December. You can see we keep on having these little waves come into the United States, one after the other. And as we move into the Christmas time period, it's not as strong as storms. A couple of storms are coming in. We had some signals that, there could be some maybe stronger storms as we go into the later portions of December. But as of right now, we're not really seeing anything overly concerning there. I mean, definitely could get some severe weather out of a couple of those, as they are weaker waves, though. So they're going to have some trouble advecting moisture to the north. But overall, you can see kind of our biggest weather patterns, at least are in terms of the jet stream here. It's going to be these first two little shots here, and then eventually, it should be a little bit more calm in terms of stronger storms as we go into Christmas. But, obviously a lot of things can change. Definitely watching this area down here. If this kind of intensifies a little bit, we could definitely see some severe weather, maybe some tornadoes down there, but still a lot of big question marks there. Now, in terms of what this is going to look like in the future, let's come down here and zoom in to the northeast for the rest of the day. As you can see, as we go into kind of the evening hours here, this rain should mostly transition to snow, although it's struggling to do that right now. But as it goes into the elevations that are higher than the lower elevations, we're definitely going to see that transition happen a little bit more effectively, given the fact that, it's going to be colder up there the higher you go in elevation. And, that's going to continue to push off to the east, bringing some snowfall, a little bit of lake effect snow on the backside, but nothing too crazy in comparison to some of the lake effect snow that we have seen in the past. And then we're watching out for this clipper system that is going to be coming through the 19th at around 3 a.m., 9 a.m., going into 12 p.m., all the way through areas like the northern plains going into the Great Lakes as well. And then eventually it kind of holds together, bringing a little bit of snow squall conditions. And you can see as it makes it over parts of Ohio. We're going to be watching out for a little bit of an intensification over there as it approaches the Appalachian Mountains. As you can see, it's not looking overly weak. I mean, there's some heavier spots of some snowfall in there. So a little bit of a snow squall, a little bit of a strengthening system. And now the models are saying as we push this storm off of the East Coast, and you can see as this colder air kind of pushes into some of this moisture that's off of the East Coast, we are getting a really close call here for what could have potentially have been a much more major snowstorm. If this moisture kind of merged with some of this colder air a little bit earlier, we could have had like a low pressure system down here and a classic nor'easter. But a lot of the models are saying that's not what's going to happen. It's going to stay a little bit to the east, bring most of the significant impacts up here towards Nova Scotia. But a decent amount of snowfall on the backside of that is going to be possible as we move into the 21st at around 9 a.m. A little bit of areas of snow for areas that haven't really seen it in a while, like talking about New Jersey, talking about, over there near Long Island as well. A little bit more snow on the backside of this going into Ohio, West Virginia, New York. So decent areas of snow are coming. Not a whole lot, but definitely something to keep an eye on. And eventually that kind of moves out of our hair. We have another little clipper system up in the north, bringing some more snow, potentially on the 23rd. Most of that sticks up into the northeast and kind of the areas that have seen it before, which is where we're really thinking that's where people are going to be seeing a white Christmas at this point. Once we get some colder air kind of merge with some of this moisture down to the south and east, or over the Ohio or the Oklahoma kind of plains region, the southern plains and the central plains, really not going to see too much happen with this storm for anybody else except for the Great Lakes in the northeast. We'll keep watching it. There's still a whole lot of time for things to change. Now, in terms of snowfall from these next couple of storms, you can see we're still sitting at around, anywhere from 1 to 2 inches over here in Ohio, maybe getting up into 3 inches as we get in between Cleveland and Columbus. On the Appalachian Mountains, we're talking about anywhere from 5 to 7, maybe even some isolated spots of 8 inches of snow in the higher elevations. So we could get accumulations all the way down south here, going into parts of Tennessee and North Carolina in some of the higher elevations as well, around 1 to 2 inches there. Going into Pennsylvania, the general story here is as you are lower in elevation, we're talking about 1 to 3 inches of snow being possible, all the way up into Scranton and higher elevations, maybe even up to 10 inches possible there. Same kind of story over here in New York, although not as big of a bias in between the higher and lower elevations. We could have a decent area of 3 to 4, maybe even getting up into 6, 7 inches south of Rochester, moving on to the east towards Utica, close to Albany. Albany can also get into 2 to 4 inches there. East of Kingston, up to 7 inches. Going up into the mountainous regions of Vermont and New Hampshire, talking about 4 to 6 inches being possible up there. And then as we start to leave the coast with some of this, we could even get an inch of snow in Long Island, going over towards Boston, 1 to 3 inches possible there. And then even parts of New Jersey, you can get in on some snow, around 1 inch being possible for a decent portion of New Jersey, with the exception of southern New Jersey. And moving off into the Great Lakes region, you can see that Michigan could pick up another 2 to 4 inches of snow, with the bullseye kind of being over here north of Grand Rapids, near Traverse City. Even parts of Indiana near Fort Wayne could pick up an inch. Same thing over here near Chicago as well. Moving into Wisconsin, we're talking around 4 to 5 inches around there near Madison, maybe a little bit lower further to the north, going a little bit further to the west towards Minneapolis. So if you're talking about anywhere from 2 to 4 inches up there. Further up north for the UP of Michigan and northern Wisconsin, we're expecting anywhere from 1 to 2 inches. Closer you get to Duluth, you might have a better chance of getting 3 inches. Now further down to the south, so I'm talking about 3 to 4 inches over here in I almost called that Wisconsin, and I almost called that Massachusetts there. Again, Minnesota. In Minnesota, we're talking about anywhere from 2 to 4 inches, maybe some isolated spots, 5 inches the further east you go from St. Cloud. A little bit of a dusting to an inch, maybe even 2 inches there in Iowa, still to fall over that amount of snow that you guys have already gotten. And then in South and North Dakota, we're talking anywhere from 3 to 4 inches there in the northeast corner, maybe even getting up into 5 5 inches on the extreme northeast corner. And then in North Dakota, we're talking about 4 to 5 inches near Fargo, going up to minus anywhere from 5 to 6, maybe even getting close to 7 inches in some isolated spots there. The further south you go, though, you can see that those snow amount start to dissipate as we get closer and closer to Dickinson. Over the west coast, still a little bit more snow to fall in the Sierras and the Cascades, anywhere from 5 to 6 inches, maybe even a foot or two, a little bit north and east of Seattle, and in Idaho and some of the mountainous regions, we still have around, anywhere from 6 to 7 inches, maybe a couple isolated spots of 9 north of Boise, 4 to 5 inches there, and then near Billings and Helena, in Wyoming and southern and kind of southwestern Montana and some of the higher elevations, still about an inch to a couple of inches to fall there. Now, in terms of severe weather for today, we still have a little bit of an area where severe weather is still going to be possible. Over here near Knoxville, north of Huntsville, going up into close to Chattanooga, but the line is starting to fall apart. Just came through my area. It's nothing crazy. Didn't even see any thunder, but some other parts of the line might have a little bit of thunder and lightning. General thunderstorms are possible all the way to the eastern coast. Looking at day 2, we still have a general thunderstorm risk down here. And as I push the models into that region, you can see that, a couple of pop-up thunderstorms going into tonight. And then also going into tomorrow, could see some thunderstorms down there near the Miami area. Not really expecting anything too crazy down there, just a little bit of spots of lightning. Further up to the north, you see that line progresses throughout the day today and kind of dissipates, maybe bringing a little bit more thunderstorms in eastern North Carolina there, kind of pushing out as that progresses off to the east. And after that, it's going to be relatively dry until we get another storm to bring some moisture and some convection further into the southeast. Day 3, we don't even have an area where thunderstorms are possible. We'll see if that changes. In terms of future severe weather, we're watching out for some intrusions of moisture and instability. As you can see, there's a lot of instability kind of trapped in the Gulf of Mexico right now, and every now and then it kind of makes it off to the north. Thankfully, there's not too much forcing for that, or we would have a little bit more widespread severe weather. But you can see that after this cold front moves through, it just kind of scrapes all of that moisture and instability until we get into around the 23rd, where we start to see a little bit more start to return to the United States. As we move into the 24th, there is a little pocket down here. We might have to watch out for some severe weather near Houston going up into Mississippi with this. And then as that pushes off to the east, kind of dissipates and falls apart. And then maybe another pocket of moisture as we go into the 27th and then the 28th. But we've been seeing this repeatedly on the GFS and some other models for a while now. So this might be a signal to watch out for, where we could have some more widespread severe weather. But as of right now, it's still a little bit too early to really take this seriously. Again, the models are going to change a lot. This instability could be a lot less as we get closer, or it could be a little bit more. So going to be watching out for this area. This is about 10 days out here for the potential for some severe weather. If there's enough wind shear in this area with maybe, some spin in the atmosphere, we could be talking about a severe weather outbreak, or maybe even some tornadoes possible with this kind of setup. So, we'll be watching out for that. I am curious, though, to see what decent lower level winds there, decent upper level winds as well. So, this could definitely produce tornadoes here if this did happen. But again, we're 10 days out. Definitely not the time to be freaking out about this. But as we get closer, I'll definitely give you guys some more updates on that. In terms of rain to come over the next 7 days, we are going to have another system move in potentially with some more rainfall over here in this region. It seems to be a pretty favored corridor. We've been kind of stuck in having more rain in this corridor, which is decent because, there are some spots in here that had drought, don't really have drought anymore. Still not talking about too much rain pretty much in this entire region. You could even extend this up to the north, as that is very scant amounts of rain, but some snow is possible in a lot of these regions. So, there will be some moisture to be melted eventually. Then over here in the west coast, still a lot of rain to come with a couple of low pressure systems that are going to be coming into this area. Decent amount of snow in those mountains as well as we move through the future. Definitely keeping an eye on this spot, as that is a little bit of an escalation there. 4 to 5 inches being possible in this corridor, around 1 to 3 inches of rain being possible there as well. Overlaying this over the drought map, you can see there's just not a whole lot of areas that are going to be getting any drought relief with any of these storms, except for up here in the northeast. If we do get some decent rain in these areas, we could see a little bit of drought relief. We do have some extreme droughts here in Maryland and Delaware, a small part over there near Philadelphia and Trenton. This will help. Also, A little bit of an extreme drought over here near Boston and Worcester. If we do get this rain over here in this region, this will be helpful for that drought as well. So a little bit of drought relief there. And then also any rain that comes over this small area of extreme and exceptional drought, that will also help. So a little bit more rain for that region as well. And we're still thinking that the drought's going to get worse over here, kind of in the Four Corners region, and also going up into the central and northern plains as well. Already some pretty bad drought there, and it does just appear like it's just going to get worse and worse all across this region. Now, in terms of the wind gusts across the United States, which we can expect, it's going to be pretty darn freaking windy up here, with anywhere from 40 to 60 mile per hour winds being possible over here near Seattle, going into Montana, also Idaho and Wyoming as well. It'll be mainly in the higher elevations, but some power outages could be possible there. Eventually that pushes off to the east a little bit, but thankfully those winds kind of calm down. But we're still talking about 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts spreading into the northern plains, going into the Ozarks as well. And then eventually that continues to push to the east, bringing some stronger winds over here into parts of South and North Dakota. A little pocket there of 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts being possible there. Then eventually that pushes down to the south and east. Sorry for this. Let me take off these pressures here so we can see the map a little bit better. It looks like Radar Omega is glitching. There we go. Much better. So yeah, those 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts move into the Ohio Valley, kind of weakening as we go throughout the 20th there. And then eventually, as we start to have this little storm form over here off the East Coast, we are going to see an escalation of around 30 mile per hour wind gusts all the way along North Carolina, going up into southern Maryland and Delaware. But those winds are really not going to pick up too much. I think the worst winds will probably be over here near Nantucket and Yarmouth here in Massachusetts. And eventually that pushes off to the east, and some light winds are going to be possible on the backside of this. And then as we go into the 21st, we're going to be watching for another escalation of some damaging winds up here in parts of Washington and Oregon, especially along the coastal regions. Could get up within those 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts as we go into the 21st at 6 p.m. Now, in terms of the temperatures for the next couple of days, you see it's pretty warm down here in the southeast, but that's going to try to change a little bit as we go into around 3 p.m. as we have some colder air pushing into the northern plains in the Great Lakes region. Might even get down to the negatives up there. Still some warm temperatures, though, hanging on in the southern plains and the central plains there, and in the southern portion of the southeast. Then eventually that cold air really starts to dump down into the United States. You can really see a wide area of some cooler temperatures as we move into the early morning of the 20th, with some of those negative degree temperatures hanging out there in northern Minnesota, also parts of North and South Dakota as well there. 20s and 30s in the northeast, 20s and 30s in the Ozarks there as well. And then eventually we see that push down a little bit further to the south. Look at this, a little bit more cooler air pushing down to the south than what the models were saying yesterday. Still not an Arctic blast by any means, but still some colder air, maybe even sub-freezing temperatures, making it as far south as areas like Birmingham, getting pretty close to Hattiesburg down there. Also most of Arkansas below freezing, parts of Oklahoma as well. That even tries to move into parts of Virginia too. Pushing this even further, you can see that eventually that cold air is going to get out of our hair after the 23rd, still hanging on up there in the northeast, but eventually a pretty big warm up could be coming for the end of December. You can see you're starting to see a lot of those warmer colors try to work back in, but man, it's quite the battle. It is quite the battle. And the only way that that cold air is really going to get out of our hair is if we actually get some organized low pressure systems that come through and bring some warmer air on the northern side, which does seem to be possible maybe as we go into the later portions of the year. Yeah, it seems like it's just going to kind of be cold, generally cold up there. No really big intrusions of any colder air, just kind of normal, which you should expect during this time of year kind of temperatures, with some maybe anomalously warm temperatures hanging on down there in the southeast. But all right, everybody, thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate it. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you did enjoy this forecast, and I will see you guys on the next video. Have a wonderful rest of your day.